I would like to, at this time, and I told Pete a few weeks ago that I would take my opportunity when he's at home here in Forest Lake and officially endorse Pete Hegseth and ask you for his support as he works hard for you in Washington, D.C. With that, Pete Hegseth, our next United States Senator. Come on.
Thank you, Bob. That means a lot. And Bob didn't mention this, but I spent some time in his office before I got into this race. Bob's the kind of guy that said, let's shut the door, let's have a conversation, and then let me pray for you. And that meant a lot to me as someone who's known Bob and understands the respect he has in this community. I appreciate that endorsement. It means a great deal. I am absolutely honored and humbled to see all of you here tonight. It means the world to me. When you can step out, I can't believe it. We've been in this race for 2 months. Feels like 2 years. It really does. And it really is, my dad was right, it is incredibly energizing to flow through the construction and see someone holding a sign. And then you come around the corner and there's another sign. And they're directing you to a group of people who you know and love from your community who have been there for you since you were this tall. It is energizing, it's humbling, and it's incredibly appreciated. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight. I couldn't begin to go name by name with everyone here who I love and respect, who's been a part of my life in meaningful ways here in Forest Lake in Minnesota, and I thank you all for being here. Thank you. As Bob mentioned, my dad mentioned, I did recently get back from Afghanistan, where I served for 8 months with the Minnesota Army National Guard. I got back in the United States in January, back in Minnesota in February, and that's when I turned to my lovely bride, who's now back in here, Samantha, and looked at her and said, what do you think about running for the U.S. Senate? And I don't know, can you make the face you gave me on that? But no soldier deploys alone, and I want to thank her for what she's done for me, not only when I was overseas, but here on this campaign. So if you would, give my wife a round of applause. And that's so Gunner too. He will disrupt this at some point. Right, buddy? And we've got another one on the way in August as well. And I'll tell you that going to war and becoming a father has taught me many things. But amongst them, the time is very precious. And that what we have in this country, with all these next generations, is worth fighting for. Not just overseas on the battlefield, but right here at home. Right here in Forest Lake in Minnesota. America is the greatest country this world has ever known. Absolutely. We should be proud of it. We should stand on a hill and shout it. But it's absolutely. But what we have here is not inevitable and cannot be taken for granted. Every single generation has to stand up and do their part. And we're here at the American Legion, where generations of veterans before us have fought on foreign battlefields for our ability to do this event right here. We fought for that freedom overseas. And we got to remember, tonight, right now, there's a kid in a foxhole in Afghanistan defending our freedom and ability to do this right here. We remember that, but we got to fight for it here at home as well. Every step of the way. Ronald Reagan in 1964 gave a speech called "A Time for Choosing," a famous speech of his. And he talked about 2 different paths for our country. And I wouldn't be running if I thought our country was headed down the right path, if I thought we were represented right now in the right way. We've got one path of more government and more debt and more regulation and a turn away from the Constitution. And if I felt like Amy Klobuchar was representing us in the right way, I wouldn't be running. But I think we need to choose a different path. A path of less government, of individual responsibility, of our free enterprise system, of a strong military, and of a return to our Declaration and Constitution, the values we were founded upon, that generations have stood on year after year. It's why we are where we are today. And normally when I give my speeches, I talk about our values as conservatives, as Republicans, what we share and why I'm running. Normally I launch into, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but when I thought about why I'm a conservative and why I believe what I believe, I didn't learn what I believe about politics or policy or conservatism from a book. I learned it from watching it lived out in front of me, in the home, in this town, in our community, in our schools. And that's when I look out here, I look at the people who taught me what it means to be a conservative. I look at my family, my father, my mother, my second family, and Jimmy's family that's here. People that I've known that instilled in me the values to love your parents, respect your parents, grow up and taught sort of traditional values that we learned in church. The simple things about how you treat other people. Those are things that you learned in your home, from your family, that are reinforced by your friends. Brian Lucine, a friend of mine forever, we welcomed you at the door today. Friends that I've seen, the Rotogs, Luke Ellis' father Jim. Friends of mine who I've seen and known in this, who reinforce the values that my parents reinforced. And then members of the community. Russ Mansmith, who cut my hair at Russell's Barbershop. And I told him, I said, if I win this thing, I'm getting another haircut, a flat top, on November 5th. You can write that down. Absolutely. It's Diane Finneman and what she does for veterans. And it's small businesses in our community. That's conservatism lived out. It's the schools. It's the teachers we have in Bob Detmer, in Brian Hegseth, in Coach Gunderson, who I invited, but I think he might be on the other side of the spectrum. I love him anyway. It's the folks we know that live those values out. It's the veterans that are here. It's Ron Lasuda. It's Dick Doyle. It's the people in our community who have fought and served. And it's our politicians that represent this area. It's Ray Vanderveer, again, Bob Detmer. It's Karen Moorhead, who's fought for conservative Republican values in this community. That's conservatism lived out. I didn't learn it from reading William F. Buckley, even though I love William F. Buckley. I learned what it meant to be a conservative from my family, from this community. So I thank you. I thank you for inspiring me, for letting me stand on your shoulders, for creating that opportunity. Because without that, I would not be standing here. I would not have this opportunity. You can't risk and step out and try difficult things unless your house is built on solid ground. And because I had a family with faith, and because I had a community that reinforced those values, I was able to do that. So I'm cognizant of that. Know where I came from. Always remember that. And that's why we're only 20 minutes down the road in Stillwater. Because I don't ever want to be, again, any further away from that. So I appreciate what you've done. And when I talk about our shared values, now I talk a little bit about what I normally talk about on the stump, which is, it's not about me, it's about what we know, and we know that politicians don't create jobs. Small business owners create jobs. It's men and women that have a skill or an idea, and maybe they sketch it out on the back of a cocktail napkin. Because America's the place where you can sketch that idea out and it becomes reality. It's 2 people, then it's 20, then it's 200. And it's the job of a policymaker to get the heck out of the way of that business owner. And that comes through lessening the regulatory burden, cutting the red tape, simplifying the tax code, reducing taxes on corporations, and providing predictability so that businesses know what's coming next. That's one of the worst things about Obamacare. A lot of bad things about Obamacare. One of the worst things is that what did Nancy Pelosi say? We need to pass the bill so that we can find out what's in it. But we're finding out what's in it. When we passed it, it was 2,000 pages long. Today it's 7,000 pages long because the regulators got a hold of it. So you know what's happened. When government gets in between, we know what happens. And we need legislators that understand when we grow government and grow regulation, it stifles business growth. It stifles private job creation. We also know that the debt and deficit spending we have in this country is utterly unsustainable and irresponsible. Right now our debt is $50.7 trillion. And I can't even begin to fathom that. Each one of you owes 50 grand. I owe 50 grand. My son who's screaming in the hallway owes 50 grand. My unborn child still owes 50 grand. And it's only going to go up. And when we're running against Amy Klobuchar, she ran in 2006 saying that $300 billion annual deficits are irresponsible and unsustainable. Well, here we are 6 years later, and those $300 billion deficits are $1.2 trillion deficits. And she voted for everything in the middle. And what we can bring to this campaign is the ability to articulate that reality, that voting record reality, and then raise the kind of money we're going to need in order to amplify that message across Minnesota. Because people like Amy, they kind of have a warm fuzzy about her, but they like her hot dish recipes, but they don't really know how she votes. And when they learn that she's got a more liberal voting record than Keith Ellison and Betty McCollum, I think they're going to think twice about whether or not they think she's the best representative statewide for us in Minnesota. It's also because we know that the role of the federal government in the Constitution is limited and enumerated. Everything else in the Constitution is left to the states and the people. And we need representatives in Washington that don't think they need to be fixing every part of our lives from a distant capital, which is something Ronald Reagan knew very well and talked about in the time for choosing. And we also know that the peace we have in this country comes through strength. And it's on the backs of veterans that have fought for it. And that a strong military for this country is an important thing. And that we can never, ever cede our sovereignty to international organizations like the UN or the International Criminal Court. America is a special place. So I stand up here, I know I'm 31 years old, and I was actually spoke to the Republican seniors of Minnesota this morning, and it was great. They're a great group. And I looked at him, I said, I know I probably look more like your grandson than a Senate candidate. And they kind of chuckled, and then some ladies were offended, and I had to take the statement back. But I realized that 31-year-olds don't normally run for the U.S. Senate. I've never run for office before, but I've held politicians accountable before. And I ran an organization called Vets for Freedom, which is an Iraq and Afghanistan veterans organization, nationwide nonprofit. And when we took it over in 2007, when I took the organization over, we had a couple thousand members. We had nothing in the checkbook. And I literally was given the passwords to the website. And I said, good luck, have at it. Oh, and tonight you're debating Chris Matthews on hardball. And from there, in a year and a half, we built it to an organization of 95,000 members, 50 state chapters, and we raised $8.5 million to take on then Senator Obama's liberal agenda and depiction of the war. Because we were sick and tired of the mainstream media's narrative of failure. That the Iraq surge was a failure, that the war was a failure, that our troops couldn't do, that the war was lost. That General Betray Us is not General Betray Us, he's General Betray Us. And it was time to stand up and say, no, we need to give voice to that soldier on the ground. And make sure that they're included in the discussion. They're included in the debate. And so we pushed back. We did TV appearances. We were on the radio. We wrote op-eds. We brought veterans to Washington. I've seen a number here, including Representative Detmer, that were there with us, meeting with senators and congressmen and saying, don't pull the funding on our troops. Don't pull the rug out from underneath them. Give them what they need to succeed. And we met with Senator Klobuchar, and we met with Senator Coleman. Actually, Senator Klobuchar, this is a fact. We had 50 veterans from Minnesota. 50 veterans came to Washington in April of 2008 to meet with her. They tried to meet with her. When she found out they were coming, she tried to sneak out the back door of the office. They caught her in the hallway. And she was aggravated that they had sort of caught her and wanted to know why they wanted to talk to her. So there's a personal aspect to this too. And we've gone up to Washington, tried to hold those, and we did hold them accountable. I was a Fox News military analyst, did 200 appearances on television, wrote for National Review Online, went back to Iraq a couple of times as an embedded reporter to report on what was happening. And then in 2010, we helped elect 6 conservative, no problem, 6 conservative Republican veterans to Washington, one of which is Alan West down in Florida. So what we bring to this race is not just, I think, the ability to articulate conservative ideas that appeal to Minnesotans, but the ability to organize boots on the ground that we're going to need. It's going to start with friends. It already has. Every day when I see Ron Lasuda walk into our office to make phone calls, I say, we got the best salesman in Forest Lake on the phone for us, making that case. Leslie as well. Everybody in there. It's humbling, and we need it. We're going to have that organization, and then we're going to raise the money so that we can amplify the message. A lot of people don't. They don't poke their head up until October to think about who they're going to vote for. And in this race, we need a candidate that can raise the money so that we can put those ads on television that depict why I'm running. That jobs in the economy come back through the private sector, through getting out of the way of job creators and letting them create jobs. That our debt deficit is unsustainable, that we need to repeal Obamacare. Those are winning issues, provided we can amplify that message, and we're going to do that. So events like this are part of it, and getting the word out there. If you, on the political side of what I'm up against, we've got an endorsing convention in 2.5 weeks. So right now, our whole universe, my whole universe, ends in St. Cloud on May 18th. We've got 18 days to make a case to 2,200 Republican delegates that we would be the best candidate to represent Minnesota against Amy Klobuchar. So I can tell you, my ear is glued to a phone, talking to delegates, driving across the state, meeting with delegates, and making that case, and raising money at the same time. If anybody's interested, Bill Kristol's coming to town on May 13th for an event with Senator Rudy Boschwitz and others. So if you want more information, we can get you information on that. So we're raising money at the same time. And we're going to have those resources in order to win in November. But I could not do this without your support. So part of the reason you're here too is, if you have the time, we'd love for you to volunteer. We need volunteers. We need that support. If you've got the ability to donate, I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity with a microphone to say, hey, we take checks. And we would love manpower. If you're a delegate, if you're not a delegate, buy a t-shirt. It goes into our campaign coffers and helps us do what we need to do in order to win. So I am humbled and honored that you're here. I'm honored by the endorsement of great representatives like Ray Vandermeer and Bob Detmer. I'm honored that my family is right here at my side as we step out into the great unknown, where you never know what's happening next. And a lot of people like to say a lot of things about you. You got to have a thick skin. My mom sometimes picks up the phone in the office and they're saying something mean about you. It happens, Mom. Not everybody likes me. So it has been a fun learning experience. And when you're doing something you believe in, when you believe in this country, when you believe in what it stands for, when you believe 2012 is that critical, that the moment where we're facing, the choice we're facing is that stark, then it's easy to get up in the morning and fight for it. So I thank you for being here. I ask you to join us. We've got lots of literature here. We've got lots of staff. If you see somebody in a t-shirt, they probably know a little bit about what's going on because they're helping us out. So thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out. We're going to stick around as long as you guys are here. But God bless you. God bless this state. And God bless Forest Lake. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you sort of like that. Cool.